it up. So out goes the count to kick things off. This is week 6, season 3 of the Quake Pro League, and we are starting the day with Avec versus Spart1e.
Starting on Avic's POV up on that Galena, has already picked up that heavy, dropped his first totem of the day, halfway to getting his second as well, and this will be the first minute or two of the game. Weeding out your opponent, seeing what's up, getting all the right resources, and for Galena, building that totem fortress. We're 22 seconds into the game. He's 2/3 of the way to an overstack already, fighting for this heavy, huge rockets coming out from Sparty. A good retaliation from Avec. Sparty, having done that damage, he might be able to clear up the totems, but instead he just decides to reset, go over and pick up that mega health, it looks like, giving Avec a little bit of breathing room, and up to a minute into this game, and he will probably even have that first overstack.
Like what I'm seeing out of Sparty.
Oh, wow.
Well, not so much that, but he really left the mega up, right? Exactly what I talked about. There's 20 seconds between the items, so he's got a nice offset, but it won't amount to much. That one direct rocket into the rail, 190 damage to the face was enough to give Avec the advantage that he needed. And now the Polish Prince is one frag in the lead and trying to make a move on the mega.
Yeah, I do think that was a little bit of a mistake for Sparty, and this is a huge mistake, as you said. He's the one that did the offset. He's just baiting Avec, trying to get him into the range of that turret. It isn't to be as an amazing rail comes out, but the mistake I was talking about, I think he had enough time to go clear up those totems. He had done so much damage to Avec, there was no way Avec was going to stand his ground to defend that area, and now look at him. He's already got the overstack up twice. This is his second overstack of the game, a minute and a half into it. He's got enough totems down, and he's got all of the items in the split on them. Sparty's standing his ground with the rail, but he's already moved out of position for this mega. Avec doesn't push in though. Sparty trying to take this rail fight. It's not to be. Eaten 3 rails in a row. Avec can clean him up with a rail. No! Somehow Sparty's still alive up top. They're both extremely low. They both get out with their life for now.
How did no one die there? They both stuck around with around 15 HP each. But of course, Avec, he's got that fortress of totems. He can afford to just go and stack right back up. Sparty does not have that luxury, and he will fall once more. And now Avec is in such a good position. The only problem is that he's lacking ammo. He's almost out of rockets, doesn't have LG. Finally picks up some more LG ammo, but it's a little late. That's a shame for Avec. If he had lightning gun ammo, I think he would have just pushed through the teleporter and cleaned up yet another frag.
Yeah, I agree, but he's respecting the positioning of the ice and turret as well. I mean, Avec, probably better than anyone in the world, knows how to play around that, and so he will be respecting that up there. But what he's trying to do at this point in time is do damage. A little bit of a mistiming, I think, there, allowing Sparty to get into that mega area. Oh, sorry, that heavy area, should I say. Sparty's now back across, pressuring up on the mega, trying to control that high ground. That's a great effect as well. Avic's walking away, licking his wounds, but it's not the biggest thing in the world because, as we talked about, he has that overstack to play with, and there you go, it's up once again. And it's almost like Avec has a permanent mega in his pocket. He's got 7 seconds to buy us some time and get another overstack. And he's doing such a great job on the defense here. Sparty pushing him with the wrong weapons, just using the tri-bolt, and somehow he gets a trade.
That was the best outcome that Sparty could have hoped for. The initial engagement was good, he had the high ground, but he just wasn't connecting with the rockets. So a trade was ultimately the best thing he could have got out of that one. Now again, Avec making such good use of that totem. Sparty should fall again, manages to escape with a sliver of health though. Nice tri-bolt actually. That's a fair bit of pressure out of nowhere, and now Avec has to be careful.
Yeah, he's a little bit early for this mega. I don't think he knows exactly when it is, but it doesn't even matter at this point. He has timing on it. He's actually pressuring, and there's a bit sloppy for Sparty. Should have known that was going to happen, and this is what happens. We talked about that snowball early on. If Sparty gives up an early frag, we're 5-0, 4 minutes in. And the overstack has been king so far. We've seen a little bit of use of the turret, but this is what we talked about. The turret is far more situational, whereas those totems, if they're not managed, they're an ever-present threat.
I absolutely love some of the stats here, Dan. Avec has only secured 1 mega. That was his second. Sparty has 5. And yet, despite that, Avic's HP healed is twice the amount of Sparty's. Literally, just by his totems alone, he is giving himself such an advantage in terms of health that Sparty is just left unable to break through.
And this is what you talked about. Avec doesn't have to expose himself to get the Mega. But what Avec has done a great job of is making sure he pressures the Mega. So even though he didn't want to pick it up prior to now, he was making sure Spart1e never had a clean pickup, and the pressure has counted. And Spart1e he's in a hard place because he has to raise the tempo even more to get back into this game with 7 frags difference. The question is, how does he do it without connecting with just multitudes of shots?
Kind of feel like that's become his strategy, no? He's just looking to hit the multitude of shots, and the moment that he can't, then stuff like this happens.
That almost reeks of desperation, though. It's just slightly too obvious now. And 9 frag Spart1e's going to keep the plus forward on, and it's going to be frag after frag. And hesitate to say it's GG already, but I mean, what is the hope for Spart1e at this point? This is the ever-feared snowball we talked about.
50% rail for Avec, 45% LG. The man's aim is on point, and Spart1e really needs to be hitting more just to keep this somewhat stable. And if you then add in the totems, then it is a done deal.
Oh, shot. But the totems, there is no overstack. But at this point in the game, it doesn't even matter. 11 to -1. Avec has full control of the entire map. He'll be setting up perfectly for this Mega as well. And now he doesn't even care about building an overstack because he knows how dominant his lead and his positioning is.
And that's sometimes the problem in these matchups, right? There does come a point at which the player manages to take down the totems and clear that out, but by then, it's already too late. Your opponent has made such good use of it. There's really no place left for you to go. Even if Spart1e now gets full control and starts running the items, what is he gonna do? 3 minutes for 12 frags? It's just not gonna happen.
And I hesitate to say it, but a big part of it was just not being proactive and clearing the totems after the first minute when he did all of that damage.
Yep.
He retreated, he went to the high ground, but he had another 10 seconds to spare that he just, I don't want to say wasted, but that's essentially what happened. He went to the high ground, just chilled up there, and that alone probably cost him a couple of frags off the bat. Obviously there was more mistakes after that, but that would have limited the aggression potential from Avec in the opening stages. And you can see there was no looking back from Avec when he got that lead. Yes, there were many, many errors along the way that Spart1e committed, but that alone set Avec up for victory.
The railgun percentage also kind of tells a story on Sparty's end. He started off really solid, 44% rail I saw him hit at one point, and now he's down to just 30. He's really been trying to make something happen with the railgun, pushing in over and over, taking angles that are very difficult, very inconsistent to hit, because like you said, it's kind of desperation right now, and it has been that way for, I feel like, the past 3 minutes.
Yeah, and I get the denial pick of the ISIM because you don't want Avec to play it, but at the same time, the way Sparty's been playing, you would have said his strategy would have been more effective with a Sorlag or a heavy champion, you know? Because then at least he has the starting stack to play aggressive and to make some mistakes. You can't afford to be as careless as that when you're playing on an ISIM.
I mean, at which point did we see the turret actually meaningfully contribute to Sparty's play, right? Personally, I can't think of any. There were a few situations where the turret did some nice damage at the top of the teleporter, right? When Sparty moved on to Mega, and it distracted his opponent a bit, sure, but it really wasn't any sort of influential ability in the grand scheme of things, and Avec just made perfect use of his totems. Yeah,
it was literally at one time in the opening stages where Avec had to retreat and forfeit the Mega. Apart from that, it's been irrelevant. But as you said, you look at these totems, first 3 or 4 minutes of the game, Avec had an eternal overstack. And as you pointed out, even without the Mega, still massively out-healing his opponent. The efficiency was there, utility was there, and you see this is why Galena is so feared. People like Base who use it so perfectly, this is why people don't want to play against it. What can you do if your opponent's just got constant overstack? And that's not even to mention just using the totem or using it up to deny areas on the TP. And you have to be an Ison specialist to pull up on Ison, and it didn't look like Spart1e was quite there today.
feel like that was a little bit of an unintended rocket jump with self-damage and then the flow through the LG. Hate to see it when you're a Spart1e fan. You love it when you like Avec, but this one is done and dusted. Has been that way for quite a while now. Very, very impressive victory by Avec. 2,500 points of damage, more than his opponent. 6.5k versus 4k, and that is an extremely well-deserved victory.
This is the Avec we want to see. This is the Avec you tune in to this channel to watch, and it's nice to see it. As you pointed out, it's probably not so nice if you're a Spart1e or potentially a Spart1e fan, but it's still nice to see. And I mean, I have to ask, Flea, you said traditionally these two go back and forth in the series. Do you think we're going to see a 3-0 for one of the first times today?
It could be. It could be. I feel like we've seen a lot of 2-1s this stage, right? Rarely that we just run up with a lot of 3-0s, but it could very well shape up to be one. Happens very rarely, like we said, in the matches between these two specific players, but the way that Avec has been going at it, I don't know, and I'm a little bit worried about Sparty. Now, we did say rather, that especially in the last map, we both favored the Athena pick over the Visor. And on Ruins, we also really liked the Stroke coming out against that Anarchy. So I really do value his odds higher in these next two maps than in the first one.
Yeah, I agree. And like, we have to take in context, we've seen Sparty many times, right? We know what to expect from Sparty, and this is actually one of the themes. Sometimes he comes out the gate slow, something doesn't go his way, and he's an emotional player. Let's play it like that, right? And we've seen him get trounced in map 1 and come back to take map 2 and even take a series away. That's just the way Sparty operates. He's very good at the reset, and he often gives up hope quite early on into series, even though he shouldn't do. So you have to take it with a pinch of salt when you see 26 -1. It's not the best score, but Sparty can come back. And to your point, not only does he have a good pick on Ruins, Ruins will give him more breathing space. And that's what Avec didn't give him on this particular map. Plus, Avec is playing the light champion now. He has to be slightly more careful. He can't be as headstrong in his approach. So there is a more manageable game plan for Sparty here, but we definitely need to see better aim, better item control. I mean, better Quake, just put it that way. Better Quake. And in map 3, if he can pull out an amazing Athena, yes, he will be able to exploit the Visor. But there's a long way to go before we get there.
Something else to consider is that it is really historically difficult to play a light champion on Ruins because both of the light armors are in such a precarious position, right? They're kind of at the edge of these open plazas where if you make the move for the item, there's no easy way out. There's not a lot of cover for you to work with. And when you're a light champion and you rely so heavily on those light armor pickups because you have none of your own to begin with, then that can make for some very difficult engagements. And the player who's in control, especially if they're playing a medium champion and they're sitting on that center area of the map, and we know that that is something that Sparty likes to do, it can be so punishing for light champions to just get any sort of foothold in the match. So Sparty definitely has a better chance of coming out on top this time than he did on Veil.
Yep, but then Anarchy is one of the most picked champions on this map for a reason.
Yes.
The inject is incredible in this map. The air control is also incredible in this map. And the split on the two major items means you're generally always guaranteed one of the major items. So you have something to fall back on and you can defend them quite well. So it does work both ways, but you're right. It is a good map for Stroke. You can bully the Anarchy if you get off to an early start, but definitely need to see more item control, you know, just play the basics better from Sparty's POV. And if he could do that, if he can keep in the series, then obviously anything can happen.
And here we are, jumping into the game, starting it off once again on Avic's point of view. Immediately going for those small armors. He knows that Sparty isn't really in the best position to punish yet, but that's a nice rail. And that's completely no armor for Avec, right then? He's got no armor to his name whatsoever. He wants to make a move on the small armor on top, if it's still there. But Sparty's waiting for him. This is exactly what I talked about. Precarious to go for them. And Sparty abuses it.
And there's the Pika. Really good use of the Pika as well. Realizing that Avec doesn't have the weaponry to play around it. Perfectly played by Sparty, and this is what we want to see now. Just play it slower, play positional. There you go with the rails connecting. These are just elements of his game we didn't see in map 1. Yes, Avec got away and picked up that Mega, but that's okay. Sparty's playing the mid ground, he's controlling this rail, and you talked about it in map 1. If Sparty can prevent Avec picking up this rail, very little he can do. And yes, there'll always be a time he will get it. The question is how low. Oh my god, what an air rocket from Avec! Raining down the pain. Sparty's not afraid, he's coming back out with the Pika coming back up. He knows that Avec still doesn't have any weaponry or stacks. He wants to keep this pressure on. He's a little bit late for the Mega, doesn't connect, and now he's actually got himself in a little bit of trouble. Using the Pika early on, and these are the type of the mistakes we just don't want to see, but there's Sparty things.
That was uncalled for though, that drop by Avec. Straight onto that LG, and then the rail to finish him off. He absolutely didn't need to surrender a frag there, could have fallen back onto the heavy, which was significantly delayed.
You see the game plan. This is almost old school Avec. He knew he was probably going to die in exchange for the next frag. That's what Avec he builds his game around. It's slightly harder to execute in Quake Champions and to keep that snowball up, but he is more than willing to throw away his life, to do damage, to respawn and come back again. And that's what he's done, and he's got himself control, and he's got himself a huge split between these major items.
He's also really not holding on to the inject too long. Pretty much the moment that he's got it available, he just pushes it, right? He wants to build an increase in that late game stack. That's what he's going for right now. He wants to always be ready for that surprise peeker, Sparty trying to set up a trap.
Oh,
and it's working out nicely.
Word. I mean,
gorgeous LG.
Yeah, and that's what Avec could do so well. He just punishes the smallest mistakes. Good follow-up rail from Sparty. Has he gone too deep though? He's connected with 3. And he's given away a frag, but can he do what Avec does? Can he come back and predict where his opponent's going to be? The inject's up, and that's the challenge now. And Avec is more than ready for it. Nearly connects with a second. And Sparty, he has to scuttle away. He's going to have to forfeit this Mega now, and probably forfeits his life in the process. Inject comes out. A rail does come out as well, but it's all in vain as Avec is also punishing these spawn frags.
And that's exactly what I was talking about when I said that Sparty sometimes plays a little carefree, right? Just off the bat, nothing but a railgun. 1, 2, 3 hits, falls just short on the last one. But still, valiant effort, and now he uses the peeker to just straight up block Avec from entering the room. Gets himself a nice frag. Little time between the major items, but Avec is starving for weapons. Doesn't really have much to work with, and of course Sparty wants to keep him away from the LG, wants to keep him away from rockets for mega spawns. Oh no.
Yeah, and Sparty is probably one of the more careless players of the spawn. You see so many times he gets punished just by not respecting his opponents off the spawn, but at the same time Avec is one of the best at pressuring opponents off the spawn, and so this is why it makes for such a snowball matchup, because every time Avic's getting these frags against Sparty, it's almost guaranteed a second, it feels like. So that's just an area of the game that Sparty just needs to focus more on.
Both players just falling back in their respective items. I love how much of this game has been played without a complete arsenal. Avec, for example, still doesn't have the rockets to work with. Doesn't really need them either. Just look at that LG.
Oh, what a rocket.
Yeah, nice retaliation shot. 100 to the face. That is going to buy Sparty the breathing room he needs to set up for heavy. But is Avec going to let him? Is he going to make a move? Actually, Sparty.
Oh,
that
what
was...
are you doing on there?
Yeah, I really don't know what that was about.
You would have thought he would have just set up by the jump pad, the standard defensive place where you can get out, but took a risk, wanted to go for the Mega, and 7-3 after 5 minutes. It's looking better than map 1, and that's the consolation message I have here, but still, not looking great for the Swede as Avec sets up down below. And this is what we expected Sparty to do just 30 seconds ago, and it's instead Avic's is doing it. He also picks Sparty off over by the light armor, exposing him there. He also will probably just rocket jump up here and get himself another frag and a mega health. Sparty sticking around with the rail. The lovely Pika once again, but actually just dodges past him. Balls of steel, and here comes another frag off the spawn as we talked about.
That kind of pressure is proving too much for Sparty to deal with, it seems. The peekers also, it feels like most of them are being used you know, as like a desperate last resort, right? Not calculated to apply pressure. We saw a few of them, especially in the opening minute or two, but right now it kind of feels like, oh, I gotta jump back, throw out the peeker and hope for the best, and sometimes it works, but more often than not it just doesn't. And Avec has been getting quite a few easy frags by just making use of the peeker.
And at the same time, a lot of Spart1e's game plan now feels like I'm just going to rush through rail and kind of hope I connect with 4 in a row. He's not managing these frags. He's not building into them. It's all or nothing plays once again as he comes flying down with the rail, but Avec is set up for that. He's also got the inject up just in time here to recoup and pick up some lights and restack. Spart1e has done pressure though to win himself the items. He's also running out of time. Avic's in position once again to put the pressure on. Pika comes out to deny the position, but Avec is just going to defend this choke point, and Spart1e doesn't really feel like he has any choice except to continue and advance. He hits a nice rail on the drop down, but look at the health exchange here. Spart1e is left with nothing once again.
And this is an awful time for the Swede to fall without stack. Just seconds before the heavy spawn that is going to give it to Avec for free. And now he can simply pick up on the rotation that Spart1e had carefully managed to secure himself, right?
Oh,
oh no, and off the spawn as well.
Yeah.
No, that's 4 in a row. Spart1e, any semblance of a game plan he had, then it's all falling apart now.
Oh, it's not going to plan.
Heavy is up and Avec, a little bit of a miss time right there. Not sure what that was all about. He was just waiting for the small armor while Heavy was up and ultimately gave it up to Spart1e. But at this stage of the game, does it still matter?
No, I don't think it does. 2 minutes to go, 8 frags the difference. Yeah, you can even see Spart1e not happy with something. Let's just call it performance. And yeah, you know, we're 12-5 now. 5 or 6 frags were spawn frags. You know, 3 of them probably were avoidable. Small things like that make such a big difference, but at the same time, Avic's been on fire. It's as simple as that. He looks so good, and this is what happens when Avec gets into his rhythm and he begins to feel himself. It's incredibly scary. But I didn't feel that Spart1e had a particular game plan here. When things started to go a bit array, it was, I'm going to just charge and try to hit as many rails as I can.
The last time it was a 3-0 between these two players then was way back in October of 2019. So well over 2.5 years ago. Let's see if Spart1e can avoid that, if he can make something happen on the final map and yeah, avert calamity. Clearly he wants to get that final map. Let's not forget, these are essentially money matches right now. Every single map counts and can pad the wallet a bit more, so Spart1e still has that motivation to push through for at least one map win. But can he do it?
We'll have to see. Otherwise, it's changing the precedent, which I'm sure Spart1e doesn't want. He's had a decent season so far, but this has just looked another level for him today. And it's, you have to credit Avec with an amazing performance, but also slightly disappointed with the way Spart1e's been playing as well. Both in terms of just clinicalness, but also general strategy. Not his best day at the office.
Spart1e's hitting 49% rail, very nice, but Avic's hitting 60%, and that's, yeah. I also feel like Spart1e's rails, they were good, at times they were very good, but he counted on it too much, right? And 4 in a row to just go all in on that and basically gamble with yet another life that you will hit 1, 2, 3, 4 shots consecutively, that's too tall of an ask, and he should not be putting himself in those kinds of situations.
And that's exactly it. He puts a lot of pressure on himself to have the clinicalness to execute. Whereas many of these positions Avec was forging, you could see they were more calculated. He was working out where his opponent's going to be, and it made the angle easier, made the opportunity easier. And when the snowball began to come, it was really, really hard for Spart1e to get back into the game. And Avec was more than happy to engage in these rail duels, which made it look a bit worse than it was. So really well played by Avec. Spart1e did hit more rail overall, 2,300 damage to just under 2,000. But everything else across the board, the LG there, 1,000 more from Avec. Just pickups in general, far more from Avec. Spart1e has to rethink, and at least now we're going into the final map. He's got the Athena against the Visor. Question is, can he get the control on the high ground? Because if you can keep that bridge control as a Visor, it doesn't really matter that you're slow, because the Athena has to come to you, or you have a piercing sight to use the rail around him. So Spart1e has to make particular emphasis to make sure he dislodges Visor from that bridge.
And I think that a key part of achieving that is hitting his shots, right? And that's something that he's not been too consistent in so far today. Sometimes, you mentioned it yourself before this series even started, you get Spart1e hitting, what, 80% railgun, something absolutely nuts like that in the opening half of the game. That just hasn't really happened today, and of course it shouldn't to get those kinds of results, but his technicalities, his aim, they need to be on point if he wants to prevent Visor from setting up shop. I think one of the early spawn, right off the bat, is going to be quite important, because a key part of Spart1e's strategy will be trying to deny that rail. So let's see how that pans out. We're loading into the map right now. We're going to jump into the game in just a second. I think this is the most interesting matchup of the series so far, right? In terms of champions.
I think so, and map as well. You know, it is back new to the map pool, but even still, it is a newer map for the players. And as you said, the champion matchup is probably the most unbalanced on paper. I think the more worrying thing for me about the way Spart1e's been playing, and I think it's a symptom of him when he feels the pressure, is it's almost entirely rail based. Virtually zero use of the LG versus zero use of any other hitscan weapon or even the rockets. It's just rail after rail, and if it's not working, what is your plan B? And that's what I want to see more with Spart1e, is just have a more balanced game plan.
Spart1e did get a good spawn, immediately managed to take away the railgun, deny it from Avec. So he is exactly where he wants to be. Oh, now he's getting real close, and he doesn't have anything to fight mid-range. Ah, that is critical miscalculation right there, ZSX. He was in a good position to just hold the rail, make a move for heavy, but instead he overextended for that small armor, and it's paid with his life.
Yeah, and you can't afford to do that as an Athena. You have to be entirely conscious of where your opponents are, because you're just incredibly squishy, incredibly vulnerable. So not the best start for Spart1e. The piercing sight comes out. He's going to just dodge that rocket, but he's now being chased down, and he knows exactly where his opponent is, and Avec is off to a flying start already.
Spart1e getting railed off spawn. Oh, what a beautiful shot. And indeed, you mentioned it yourself, Avec so good on the weapon usage, right? Knows exactly when to switch away from railgun to the heavy machine gun to just clean it up safely and quickly. Spart1e had an opportunity. If he had landed that shot, he would have been able to take the bubble, the small armor, get in position for heavy, but he misses the critical rail once again.
He does indeed, and he's already 4-0 down. This is a map we normally see quite low scores on in context. Spart1e not willing to go down that route, but on the bright side, all things considered, he's got Avec slightly on the back foot. No, my word, what a rocket through the doorway! Spart1e, he knew the timing, but so did Avec, and that's why that rocket was perfect.
Avec always manages to turn it back around, because he was in a bad position. He overextended for that fight at heavy, right? Missing all of his rails, every single one of them, whereas Spart1e did consistent machine gun damage. And so it was Avec who was really in a bad spot, but that one gorgeous rocket, that rail combo, that's just all he needs, and now it's really starting to slip out of Spart1e's grasp, and it's only 2.5 minutes in.
I feel slightly ill. This is just going from bad to worse for Spart1e, and as strong as Athena can look, yes, it's GG. Oh boy, as strong as Athena can look, if it's not going your way, like you're just dead. Oh man.
Did you save one of those vomit bags from the airplane that you were on just now? Because it looks like you might need it.
Yeah.
Sickening indeed. Sparty's just checking out at this point.
Yeah, which is unfortunate, but you know, the 2-1 system is now gone. This will be inevitably a 3-0 as Spart1e is just gone gung-ho at this point, and Avec is making Athena look slow. He knows exactly where he is, he knows exactly what's going on, and Spart1e, unfortunately, is not even trying to avoid his opponent at this point.
Hate to see it. 11 frags in just 3.5 minutes. We might be headed for a record at this point in this season of the Quake Pro League. If this keeps up, Avec might be hitting a tremendously high scoreline.
We can't have Spart1e losing 1-1, 2 maps in one single series. That is not a good look. There's not much to say at this point. You have to credit Avec with a good day at the office, particularly on the aim front. Looked incredibly clinical, and he's shown already, particularly in the last 2 maps, just how well he reads his opponent. Some of the rockets, some of the predictions, the positioning he takes to make the rail shots easy. When Avec plays this well, this is why he's seen as championship material. It's just the consistency is always a big question mark that sits over Avec. On the Spart1e front, we've seen these weeks from Spart1e, and it's obviously not the best to witness it live, but this is what can happen in the Pro League. If you're not on your 100% game, you'll get punished.
A 3-0 once again. First time in a very, very long time. Talked about it earlier. October 2019 was the last time that one player so decisively beat the other in this matchup. Other than that, I'm just reviewing some of their previous matches, and it really has just been a constant back and forth. Avec wins, Spart1e wins, Spart1e wins, Avec wins, Avec wins, Spart1e wins, Spart1e wins. It's just a constant exchange, and always, or almost always, 2-1, so close. Yes, one player ultimately needs to be the one to win, but it's always been a hard-fought battle. But today, Avec just rolled over his opponent.
Yeah, and you know, putting it in context of the season, this is the first time Spart1e's lost 3-0. He's 2-2 in series, but every single series he's lost, which was Maxter and, reminding myself, CNZ, he took a map of both players. You know, both these players are very, very good. Maxter is 2-0 in series. CNZ took a map of Rafa. He's been looking phenomenal this stage so far. So for Avec to come out and do this, it's scary. And you know, we talked in the intro about one of the reasons why this particular matchup may have gone back and forth so often. It is the styles, the fact that Spart1e can thrive off the aggression when he's playing well, but this is also the other side of the coin. When he's not playing well and he continues to match fire with fire, Avec is going to ruin you. And that's exactly what we've seen today. You know, 16 to -1. The first map also went to -1. It's just been a bloodbath.
I feel like there might be something more, you know, that's troubling Spart1e than just the game, right? They were talking in lobby chat in between matches, and even after the first map, then Spart1e was already saying, let's get this over with. That's what he said, literally. Let's just get it over with, right? Jump into the next map fast, as soon as possible. Go, go, go. His heart just wasn't in it for some reason, and he didn't play the way that we would expect him to.
Well, let's hope everything's okay on his end, but it's been not a good day in the office for poor old Spart1e, and it's not the first time we've seen such scorelines. It's just very rarely we see it all in one particular series. So Avec will pick up the 3-0 inevitably in a couple of minutes' time. Until then, we can just continue to enjoy somewhat the massacre.
And what a massacre it is. Now, of course, Spart1e, he is a tried and tested veteran, right? I don't think he's going to be troubled by this too much going into the next weeks. He will absolutely be able to shed this loss, as brutal as it may be, and keep his head held high.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. He is now back to 0, so he won't be going probably -1 for twice in the series.
Still 2 minutes left to
There's
go.
still time. There is still time.
There
please.
is still time. Yeah, indeed there is. Yeah, what more is there to be said? Extremely one-sided. Oh, Sparty actually has a shot. One decent rocket will put him at least on the scoreboard with 1 frag. I'm sure there's a lot of people in chat who want to see it end that way. Come on, Sparty. Just 1. But Avec is going to secure the heavy. It's a decent stack to work with. He's got the Holy Trinity in his hand. So a lot of work for the Swede even to get that 1 frag. Avec is just... Avec! Yeah. Avec won. That's all there is to be said.
I love Avic's aiming style. I don't know why, I just like that. Kind of like, I don't know. It's satisfying to watch.
It really is, isn't it? And it's also so effective. I still remember DreamHack Winter 2018, when there were 2v2 still going on, and it was, I think, Rafa versus Avec in the finals, and Rafa was so high in his praise, saying Avic's aim, it's absolutely insane. It's unlike anything we've seen in a long time. No one is beating him in terms of damage output, in terms of hitting his shots, and that is just something that Avec has been displaying again today.
Yeah, it's something you just can't even appreciate when you watch him until you're in game with him. It's insane. It's his weapon choice, it's the way he approaches fights, it's just the damage output is unparalleled. It doesn't always come across on broadcast, but everyone can appreciate it, and it's incredibly intimidating, and you've seen the consequence of it today. If a player tries to go toe-to-toe without having a right strategy, they'll get destroyed. So you have to then look at other players who beat an Avec and say, you know, kudos. That's a hard task. And there's been, you know, Nosfer beating Avec 2-1 last week. It's possible, but you've got to have a clear strategy and you've got to go at it in the right way. And nothing went well for Sparty today. Literally nothing. And this is what happens.
And we were still hoping, right, after that first map, that it was just unfortunate pick and ban, but nope. Even when we felt he had the advantage in terms of matchups, still didn't go his way. And I think it immediately went sour in this final map, right? Sparty, in my opinion, got the dream spawn to kick things off with. He couldn't have hoped for a better way to start. He sits on heavy, which you want to get when you're a light champion, and he can immediately pick up the railgun, denying it from Avec. And that is what we both agreed. That should be his strategy. That's the way he wants to approach this. But then, that one mistake, overextending for that small armor, and he had nothing to find at medium or close range, and Avec had the LG to work with, it all just fell apart from there.
Well, we will be moving on as Avec really had his go at the punching bag today, and will take a fairly comfortable, when I say fairly, I mean unbelievably easy 3-0. Give him some confidence going into future weeks. He started the best start to the season. So, you know, it's good for Avec to kickstart it. We expect him to be higher up in the leaderboard. Sparty, I'm sure, will be praying he has a week off next week to recoup from the battering, as it was not his week. But he's sitting now at 2-3, so it's not the worst. He's definitely not in the potential relegation zone at this point in time, but he could very easily find himself there if he doesn't pick it up very, very soon. But we will be moving on, and we'll jump over to a quick break, and we'll see you back in a few minutes' time.